Patience and progress. They're two words I've been thinking about over the course of this week. When we go into training plans, we know what the destination is. I think most of the time we're not always clear of what our starting points are. What's that gap between where I'm starting and where I want to finish? And maybe with a time-based training plan like the one I'm doing for this sub-19 5k, you know, where you're relying on paces as your sort of metric, it could be quite challenging, especially if you don't quite hit them. Now last week I had 3-minute intervals at 5k pace, and I was a touch behind the target pace for a sub-19 5k. But I've reflected during the week that, you know, I was maybe 3 or 4 seconds off for each interval, but I've still got 8 weeks, or 7 now, of this training plan in which to gain those 3 or 4 seconds. I don't need to be at the destination yet. I need to have patience in order to make progress. Now today's session is shorter intervals, but more of them. So 10 by 400. So 4k distance in total, but the intensity is coming up. So we're looking at running intervals between sort of 3:36 and 3:45 pace. Crazy numbers for a runner like me. Now I think with such a short interval, 400 meters, I'm going to struggle to lock in to a pace on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate how long a 400 meter interval will be at the top end of that pace range and the bottom end of that pace range. And I'm going to use that as a guide for each interval. Based on those calculations, I'm looking at running each 400 meters in about 125 to 130. Rep 1. Right, 130, bang on. Definitely felt like a quick start though. Right, that's the first 5 done. I would say they're probably all going better than I expected, based on how I felt when I got up and started running this morning. Somewhere between, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'll put them on the screen as I'm doing them. Somewhere between 121, I think was the fastest I saw, and 130. What that tells me though is big variance, which means, you know, my pacing is not quite there, but it's such a short interval. You know, you start off, the lactic kicks in for me at about 45 seconds, like 50 seconds in, and then it's just like a fight to sort of hold form. So I'm trying, or I'm going to try more over these next 5 to sort of start slower and focus on the form all the way through, and maybe obviously worry about the pace, but try and keep sort of correcting my form as I'm going along, standing tall, sort of running on my toes, arms pumping, and trying to keep my knees high in those last sort of 15 to 20 seconds, because that's where I start to sort of drag my posture a little bit and it kind of falls apart a little bit. So right, final 5 to go. Let's see how we get on. Right, that was rep 9, at least I think it was. It's surprisingly difficult to count when the lactic acid's kicking in. It's really hurting now. I'm still under 130. I think that was 127, the one before was maybe just 130, so that's good. And then there's one more to go. I'll stop then, go through, look at the reps before warming down. But yeah, this has been tough. It really has started to bite after that halfway mark. That's good. That's good. Okay, rep 10. Here we go. 128. I was scuppered by a dog. Ran out just in front of me, just at the end of the rep, but managed another sub 130. So yeah, I think just about there. Didn't nail every single one of them, particularly some of those ones in the latter stages where it just got really, really tough. What I'll do is a little overlay of one of the reps that I filmed. What I found was that the rep itself, it would start off, the first sort of 30 seconds or so would be sort of fairly comfortable as we were just sort of getting up to speed. The legs would move quite easily, knees would feel high, feel quite springy, quite bouncy. I'd sort of glance down at the watch and it would be around showing maybe like 318 to 320 per kilometer pace, and then it would just sort of start to tie sort of in the latter kind of third, and then it was just a real struggle to sort of maintain that form over the end of the rep. And I guess that's the challenge really, I suppose, with those shorter reps, is obviously not going out too hot, trying to sort of hold a consistent pace throughout, which is difficult, I think, over such a short distance, especially when someone like me, I'm not really used to running such short distances at such sort of high speeds. But in terms of from a workload perspective, you know, it definitely felt like I was working, heart rate was definitely getting up, and I was noticing towards the end that it wasn't coming down as quickly. I think in the first couple of reps, by the time I'd sort of start the next rep, it had dropped to kind of below hundreds, like 110 or below, but towards the end it was sort of still in the 120s and the 130s. So I guess over time you'd want to see more sort of stability in that recovery in between reps, with the heart rate dropping quicker, so that you're recovering more quickly from each repetition, I guess. Who knows? All in all though, solid workout, 8k so far, but I've still got to do a little bit of a warm down, which I'm going to do now when we finish this video, and then that is pretty much it for the week. It's been mainly easy runs this week. Today is Saturday, tomorrow is a long run of about sort of 10, maybe tomorrow is a long run of about sort of 7 to 8 miles. I might do a little bit more though, just to kind of bring the volume up, because the legs feel okay at the moment. And then that is the end of week 3 of sub 19 5k training. It's going along nicely. It's starting to move a little bit rapidly. We're still in the prep phase at the moment. Next week is the final week of the prep phase, then there's a deload week, and then we hit the big numbers and we start to go into the proper build before hopefully hitting that first sub 19 5k. All right, if you've watched this far, thank you very much. Thank you to all the new subscribers as well that have come on board over the last couple of weeks. The subscriber count is going up nicely. We're closing in on that 2,000 mark. It would be really lovely to hit that sometime soon. So if you are liking the channel, do consider hitting that subscribe button. It is free and it really does help motivate me to put out more videos. And I will see you in the next video very soon.